Hi everybody. Today's video we're going to go, I downloaded this Obsidian Monolith from a little mini scenario from Beasts of War. It's a kind of a neat little module. I thought I'd give it a shot. But one of the things it has in it, you need this Obsidian Monolith. They give you this page that, you can cut it out and build it and everything, but that looked puny to me, so I decided I needed to make my own. So this is what I came up with. So this video is how I made, and I made two because in the module, the first scenario, it's not activated yet. So then we have two, one with it active, one with it inactive. So watch the video, let me know if you like it. Like, subscribe, all that gibberish. Okay, so here we are. We're going to start, and I already have pre-cut all the polystyrene foam, and I'm using a pretty rough edge sandpaper block. And this one I use the rough edge to do the shaping, so I'm going to go over the edges and smooth out. I didn't want it to look like just a giant block. And then after you do this part, we're just going to go over all the pieces here real quick, but the camera's battery actually died and I didn't realize it while I was filming it. But after you do this part, I also got another sanding block which is more fine, and that sanding block is what I use to kind of smooth it out so it's not quite so rough. Because the one I'm using right here on the video, that one really kind of tears up the foam quite a bit, which depending on the look you're going for, if you're just wanting like a rough, really rough looking look, that one actually works pretty good. So, and then the only other thing to make sure you do is sand all the edges, especially where the ink and paint is, because that'll, you don't want any kind of straight edges. It doesn't quite get the right kind of effect if that's what you do. So. Okay, the next part we're doing here is laying the foundation for the actual stonework itself. So I'm just marking off, I can't remember what I did. I think I did an inch or inch and a half. I can't remember the exact measurement, but for this, use whatever kind of stonework size you're actually looking for. And in this build, I want it matching similar builds I've already done in the past. So I wanted all the stonework to be uniform. But you could easily do this with different sizes of stones on the base, depending on how much work you actually want to take to draw it out. And then, so just making the markings, making your lines that match it all. So basically, just it's going to look like a giant checkerboard when it's done. I'm gonna do the same thing for the top, but since I didn't want it to be the same size of blocks that's on the top that's on the bottom, so instead I decided to just break the top piece just into 4 quadrants, just to make it stand out from the bottom section. Okay, well, for the next section here, what we're going to do, and sorry about the camera is different, but again, my memory card was full, the battery died in the other camera, and I wanted to get a little bit closer up, so I got a different camera, but I'm trying to give it a stone effect to the foam, so I'm just getting this ball of aluminum foil, and just, not a super tight ball, but you just roll it along on the foam, and that definitely textures everything, and it really does give it a nice stone effect. After you just kind of go over it as much as you want, make sure you get the edges. And that one I did it a little bit slower by hand, and it just kind of pressed into it. And you don't have to press hard. I mean, the foam really takes the shape relatively easily. See, it's not a lot of work, but it definitely gives it a very nice effect, so that when you're dry brushing, you're going to pick up a lot of that work, and it'll look more realistic. And then to kind of top it off, I'm actually just getting a rock and pressing that into it in certain points, and that's again, it just gives it more detail, more stuff into the foam, so it makes it stand out a lot better. Okay, moving on, I'm just taking the pencil again, and I'm going back over some of the lines. When you do the stonework, oftentimes it kind of blurs the lines that you've already done, depending on how deep you already made it. And I didn't note it before, but the pencil I'm using here, you don't want a really sharp pencil when you're going to the foam. A dull pencil actually makes it work a lot better in the foam without tearing it and all that. The next step with the pencil is to start making the cracks in the stones, and this is kind of where it kind of goes into artistic license, and do whatever you think looks right. If you don't want it to have a really old look, don't put a lot of cracks in it. Maybe just a handful. In my build, in my set that has the similar terrain, it's supposed to be really old, so I put a lot of cracks in all the stonework. on the top pieces here, I did not put any kind of stonework grid pattern in it, and this was because for the module is supposed to be an Obsidian Monolith, so I kind of wanted it to just be this one slab of obsidian instead of multiple slabs. But I still wanted the breaks and the cracks in the stone, so I drew those in, and then after I drew them in, I also made it kind of flow a little bit better, and I actually used those more for the lightning, I think, than actually any kind of cracks in the obsidian. Obviously the next step would be to glue everything together, so I'm just using some tacky glue, some white PVA glue, sticking the pieces together for the bottom two pieces, and then for the monolith itself I used toothpicks. I shoved it into the monolith and then I glued it. After I did it this way, actually, if you're going to do this, I'd recommend putting the toothpicks in the base instead of the monolith itself, and it make it a lot easier to stand up because I kept wanting to separate. So. The next thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to cover up the cracks, so I just put a little bit of the PVA glue in all the where all the pieces join together, and used a brush just kind of fit it in there so it didn't spread everywhere. And then I have this really fine sand that I put in there, and it basically just hides those two cracks. This is kind of optional because I'll actually cover it up with greenery later as well, but I think it helps out just a little bit. It makes it look a little bit nicer. So, okay, we're ready to start painting. To begin, I've already base coated it in just a flat black. Don't use spray paint because it is polystyrene, if you didn't already know that. I used just craft paint from cheap craft paint is what I've been using here for most of this painting work. I just got a gray. It's nothing special. It's kind of a medium gray, and I'm just dry brushing over all of the base work. I'm not really doing anything right now with the monolith, but if you get some gray on the monolith, it's not that big of a deal. Just after you're done painting, you'll just go back over it with black. after I did all the dry brushing, the next step I do is I get a stipple brush, and I'm using the same gray. I didn't change the color at all, and just stippling into each stone. I like this look because it really defines each stone. And the other part that I do is, like, if there's a crack in the stone, I'll stipple around the cracks as well, so it really makes the cracks also stand out. And I'll do this for basically the whole base and the sides also. Can't forget about those. Okay, after the first set of stippling, I'm going to do this again, but I'm going to add a little bit of white to the gray just to make it a little bit lighter. And on this stippling, I'm only doing the top flat sections. I'm not going to do the sides on this, just so that they look just a little bit brighter than the sides. And that is it for the base work. Moving on to the monolith itself, I have retouched the black up where the with the dry brushing and everything got on it, so it's not that big a deal. And then I'm using a different black. This one is a gloss, has more of a gloss finish. It's for my airbrush paints, and I'm just painting over those monoliths with this gloss, and that really gives it that, because Obsidian itself has a really glassy look, so that's what this is going to do. Switching over to the airbrush, I've loaded up with just a kind of a straight blue, and I'm going over on one of the two monoliths, the one that's supposed to be active. I decided I wanted blue lightning, so all those cracks I put in there, I decided that's where the lightning is coming from, or that's just going to show off the lightning. So I'm just going over those everywhere there's a crack with the airbrush, and I want a little bit of overspray around those cracks. That's actually the effect I'm going for. This is more of the object source lighting than it is anything else. Okay, on this next part, which I got a little bit better of angle, I should have done this for the first way, but I've added some white to the blue on the airbrush, and I'm just going back over a little bit closer this time. I don't want as much overspray, but I still want a little bit of overspray, but I'm just going over the cracks again to define it with more blue. The original blue kind of almost turned purple because of the black behind it, which is great, you know, and this is just going to highlight a little bit. If you don't do all of it, it'll make a nice effect because it'll just look like it's not all of it's being lit up. So this is really just by feel about how bright you want the lightning. I wanted a nice, really bright lightning. The next part of the lightning is going to be, I'm going to bring out the brush and I'm going to switch to almost a baby blue, and I'm going to paint the inside of the lightning. In this case, it's where those cracks are, so it makes it really easy to paint. That's one of the benefits of when I did carve the lines, I did make sure it had that lightning effect already. That way it made it a lot easier. And this is just because everything else with the airbrush is more of an overspray. This is what really defines the light. Okay, the last bit of painting we're going to do is I'm just going to get pure white and just going to find just random spots or certain spots that you think looks good and just kind of dot it or just make a quick little line. That gives it that effect that its lightning is actually flowing, not just painted on the side of something. last step that I'm going to do, and this is to add some greenery, and this is to make it match the rest of my ancient ruins, whatever you want to say. So just take some PVA glue, and I throw it down, and I have that greenery stuff in front of there is some just freeze-dried moss that I get from the flower section of Walmart or whatnot, and I just break it up into little strands, and then I'm going to glue down little strands to make vines. After I get all the vines in that I want, the next step would be just to go over the cracks of the stones again, like where the two sections meet, and then where the monolith attaches itself to the stonework, because that is where, in my mind, that's where all the dirt and stuff will collect. So I'll go over those cracks, and then I just have this basically mix of different flocking material that I'll just glue then into the cracks. So okay, that's the finished product. Here's just some screenshots of the different ones. If you made it this far, thank you very much for watching. like, subscribe, make any comments to see if you like what you like to see.
Game on.